On April Fool's Day, my husband, who had been in a Cold War with me for a month, came to discuss divorce with his childhood friend. This was the first time he took the initiative to show weakness to me. But he didn't know. I was already dead that day. I caught him playing a training game with Lily, his childhood friend. He and our son, in a fit of anger and embarrassment, kicked me out. I was locked in the basement, desperately trying to survive. Meanwhile, they were eating hot pot indoors in warmth. My hands and feet were broken. I struggled to crawl to the street. I called for help from my son, but my son was holding Lily's hand, calling her mommy. In the end, all the bones in my body were broken. I died in despair. The murderers sewed me into the mattress. During the day, they played happily, trying various fun games. At night, my son happily called for mommy. The three of them happily fell into a deep sleep. They seemed to have completely forgotten about me, the real wife and biological mother. I'm floating in the air, staring at them blankly. It feels like they are the real family. I've always felt like an outsider. But why is it them who learned about my death in the end? You are the ones who are crazy. At the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, John is getting angrier as he speaks. You're just wearing a nurse's uniform to show your face. Nothing actually happened. Why get so worked up over it? Life is already dull enough. Yet you insist on clinging to those pointless rules. Little Chen and I can hardly breathe under her resentment. What exactly makes her better than you? I only spoke the truth. She suspects that I am having an affair. It's utterly unreasonable, just because of this. She actually wants to divorce me. Lily showed a hint of smugness on her face, gently linking her arm with his. She advised in a gentle tone, Emily is really angry this time. Otherwise, she wouldn't have not shown up for an entire month. She used to care for Xiao Chen so much, but this time, she hasn't come to see him even once. Why don't you go comfort Emily? It's okay if I suffer a bit of injustice. Xiao Chen's eyes are red. His voice is a bit choked up. Lily, I really wish you were my mom. Don't worry. When my mom comes back, I will definitely make her apologize to you. I won't let you suffer injustice for nothing. The three of them are tightly embraced together. They look just like a real family. I rushed over desperately, wanting to pull them apart, but I could only helplessly pass through their bodies. I can no longer feel the pain in my heart. My eyes are dry and aching. I forgot again. You can't shed tears when you're dead. This is the husband I gave up my career to take care of. This is the child I raised with all my effort. One who I discovered in an improper relationship. They kicked me out of the house. After I left, he hopes others can be his mom. Do they think that? No matter how much they hurt me, I will not leave. If you really like Lily that much, I should have taken the initiative to withdraw back then. John angrily called me. Emily, you said you wanted a divorce but didn't dare to come over. Are you playing a joke on me for April Fool's Day? Come back and apologize to Lily. There was silence on the other end of the line. If I'm not mistaken, the person who answered the phone might be the murderer. He gritted his teeth. He said with a stern tone, if you don't apologize, I will file for divorce. Don't regret coming to beg me then. Lily added fuel to the fire beside him. Emily, don't quarrel with John. You're a housewife. In the end, you'll be the one suffering. Little Chen murmured softly beside her, Mom, you should apologize to Lily. Otherwise, I might start calling Lily Mom from now on. Although I have lost all hope in them, I still couldn't help but chuckle coldly. I am no longer here. How can I apologize to two ungrateful people like you? The more I think about it, the more endless sadness fills my heart. How did I die? I have no memory of it at all. The call was suddenly disconnected. The three of them stood still. They looked at each other. John appeared somewhat flustered. She actually dared to hang up on me. I have already taken the initiative to show weakness. Why did she still hang up on me? I smiled bitterly. It's been 18 years since we got married. Every time we have a fight, I'm always the first to back down. In the past, when he called me first, I would feel very happy. Even if he said something bad about me, I wouldn't get angry. I have always believed that there is no need to compete for victory or defeat in love. As long as you're happy, that's all that matters. I thought my tolerance would make him grateful, but to him, it seemed to be taken for granted. He looked gloomy. He still wanted to continue arguing. At that moment, the phone suddenly rang. The caller ID showed it was my best friend. My friend said anxiously on the phone, John, I haven't seen Emily for a month. I've sent her so many messages. She hasn't replied at all. I can't even get through on the phone. What happened to her? Is something wrong with her? John sighed in relief. It was Emily who asked you to act, right? You all should at least act a little more convincingly. She's really in a bad mood now. Not only did she dare to hang up on me, but she also sent you to deceive me. It's just to make me anxious, right? Tell her to come back and apologize to Lily immediately. About hanging up on me earlier, I can let that go. My best friend was obviously annoyed by his unreasonable way of speaking. What are you talking about? I've called Emily several hundred times this month. She hasn't answered a single one. I'm worried something happened to her. As her husband, haven't you tried to find her? Seeing John about to lose his temper again, Lily quickly stepped in to explain. Emily just hung up the phone, and my friend interrupted angrily before she could finish. What gives you the right to meddle in this? John, how could you do something like this? Emily has been so sincere to you, even if you went bankrupt. She has always been by your side. How can you treat her like this? Where exactly is Emily now? My best friend often says I am too hard on myself. She even joked that if I died, it would be John's ghost. I just smiled and replied, John is not just my lover, he is also my family. It's only natural that I love him, even if John forgets my birthday. I'd rather go bankrupt than not buy expensive jewelry for Lily. I only feel a bit sad. After all, he is my lover, and they are my only family now. Even if they slowly distance themselves from me, going to find Lily, I never really thought about leaving them. How could I possibly not love him? So much time has passed. I didn't expect my best friend's words to come true. After I die, I am forced to stay by his side. Until now, I can't be more than 5 meters away from him. Reality brought me back to my senses. John shouted loudly, Emily, I know you can hear me. Can you please stop causing trouble? Upon hearing this, a memory suddenly surged in my mind. I couldn't help but scream in pain, I remembered. That day, Lily came to my house. Wearing a uniform, she leaned on the table, shaking her head. I was furious. I directly scolded her. I questioned her. How could you play such an offensive trick with John? Lily's eyes were red. She fell to the ground. John saw this. He immediately said angrily, How could you do this? How can you say that about Lily? Nothing happened between us. Go away. You need to leave immediately. This is my home. My son said I was being paranoid. Let me leave. This isn't the first time they all sided with Lily. They hurriedly held her gently in their arms to comfort her, but they pushed me out the door and locked the door. It was lightly snowing outside. I was broke. I could only wander the streets in my thin pajamas. Suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in the back of my head. My vision went dark. I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, everything around me was pitch black. The air inside was filled with an unpleasant smell. No one brings me food when I'm hungry. I pick up bugs from the ground to eat. When I'm thirsty, I drink the dirty water from the ground. I'll do whatever it takes to survive. I don't want to die. My husband and son are still waiting for me. I don't know how many days have passed. The killer said to me, I'll give you a chance. Call the most important person to you. If he is willing to save you, I'll let you go. What do you think? I couldn't speak because my throat was hoarse. I could only nod repeatedly. I trembled as I dialed John's number. My voice came out in a stutter. I'm not sure if he can recognize it's me, but I can only do my best to express myself. Very soon, a woman's laughter came from the other end of the line. John, someone is looking for you. I heard someone passed away. It might be Emily. Although I'm a bit disappointed it's not John, I'm still filled with hope. As long as he hears me, he will definitely save me. But John gently took the phone. Then he said to me with disgust, Emily, if you don't apologize to Lily, then you might as well die. So you don't have to live in constant suspicion and talk of divorce. Lily, let's continue eating hot pot. This is perfect for warming up on a snowy day. I nervously tapped on the phone screen. My nails were almost bleeding from it. On the other end of the line, there was only a busy signal. No one answered. My heart sank under the harsh white light. The man smiled. He lunged towards me. His yellowing teeth were very unsettling to look at. My eyes turned red. I stared intently at the person below who was softly comforting Lily. All these years, he had never spoken to me so gently, but he was especially patient with Lily. It turns out, while I was enduring the cold, drinking spoiled water, and eating unpalatable food, desperately trying to survive, he was out having hot pot with his childhood friend. Now I've really left. They can finally be together openly. Little Chen saw Lily being criticized. She also scolded her best friend over the phone. Auntie, how can you blame Lily without understanding the situation? She is definitely not the third party. Mom is really something. Why hasn't she come back yet? If she doesn't come back to apologize soon, Dad and I really won't want to deal with her anymore. The best friend couldn't help but laugh. Your dad and you are really something. Even if you raise a dog, after all these years, you should have some feelings, right? Yet you only care about protecting others. You don't care about Emily at all. It's really uncomfortable. You can go. I'll find it myself. The best friend angrily hung up the phone. Even my friends sincerely feel it's not worth it for me. But my own son doesn't care about me at all. I let out a bitter laugh. My thoughts returned to the second chance the killer gave me. He said I was more obedient than the people he had killed before. So he gave me a second chance. At that time, although my mind was hazy, I knew I had to seize every opportunity to survive, because my son still needs me. He used tools to sever my limbs. He pulled out my tongue. Then he dumped me on the road my son takes to school every day. As soon as I saw my son, I was so overwhelmed that I cried. Ignoring the disgust of those around me and the wounds on my body, I desperately crawled towards the breakfast shop. My son goes to that shop every morning to buy buns and soy milk. The killer said, as long as my son gives him $1, he would take me to the hospital. I have always taught my son to be helpful. He definitely wouldn't hesitate to part with that $1. I saw him slowly approaching, holding Lily's hand. I couldn't help but start to look forward to it. The pain didn't seem so noticeable anymore, but fate always loves to play tricks. My son walked into that hamburger place. I never allowed him to go. In the crowded crowd, I couldn't care less about the pain. With my last bit of strength, I crawled towards him. We soon got out. I stared longingly at the $1 left in my son's hand. But my son was chewing on the hamburger. He took a step back. There was not a trace of sympathy in his eyes. I awkwardly lowered my head. Mom, I want to eat a grilled sausage. I raised my head in surprise. I thought he recognized me, but immediately after, Lily happily responded, let's go. Mom will buy it for you. She suddenly felt all the blood in her body run cold. The two of them walked away. Little Chen whispered, you're still good to me. My mom is particularly stingy. They only give me 3 yuan each time, and they won't let me buy food. I'm already tired of eating buns. If only you were my mom, she said. Teardrops streamed down uncontrollably. Is this the child I risked my life to give birth to? He often got sick after he was born, so I strictly regulated what he could eat and what he couldn't touch, even the restaurants we normally eat at. I've also chosen them carefully. I'm strict not only about food, but also about every detail of life. But now, I'm actually not as good as Lily, who lets him eat junk food. I've been called stingy. Now I have to watch other people's sons. My heart has become as calm as water. There are no more fluctuations, hearing her best friend's sincere tone. John suddenly felt a wave of unease. He suddenly realized I hadn't shown up for a month. He tried to call me, but he couldn't get in touch at all. He quickly took Xiao Chen back home. Lily initially wanted to come back with them, but John didn't agree. The house is still the same house, but the home is no longer what it used to be. There used to be a family photo of the 3 of us hanging in the middle of the living room. Now my face has been cut out. The photo is hanging there. It looks very out of place. The plants I usually use to purify the air have also been scalded to death by the hot pot soup. They are lying listlessly in the corner. The room is filled with dust and garbage. The laundry room is piled high with unwashed clothes. John sat on the sofa with a sullen expression. He impatiently rubbed his hair. Emily, where have you been? Why haven't you come back yet? As long as you come back, I will forgive you. Xiao Chen was touched by her best friend's words. She felt a bit guilty inside. Tears gradually welled up in her eyes. My child resembles me. Mom has never been gone for this long. I miss Mom. I want Mom. I watched the father and son who only started to worry now. I couldn't help but laugh out loud. It's really too funny. I've been gone for a month. Only now do they think to look for me. But I've always been right by your side. Right under the mattress you lie on every day. I even watched John and Lily play dress-up in various uniforms. Now, my corpse is probably starting to rot by now. The phone rang. John's face showed uncontainable joy. He quickly picked up his phone to take a look. This time, it was the police calling. He frowned. His expression changed several times. In the end, he still answered the call. Hello, we received a report. We'd like to verify the situation with you. Your wife, Emily, has been missing for a month. Are you aware of this matter? Upon hearing this, he felt relieved. What disappearance? Emily is just having a quarrel with me. She will be back in a few days. Today is April Fool's Day. They are just joking around. No need to trouble the police. After her best friend reported it to the police, We checked the local surveillance footage. We found that MTK's Emily entered a blind spot in the surveillance a month ago, and she has not been seen since. The person on the other side paused for a moment. The tone became serious. We suspect that MTK's Emily may be in danger, so please tell us every detail of that night truthfully. Time is of the essence. Every minute wasted increases the danger, and this is also to ensure your wife can be rescued quickly. That's impossible. Emily answered a call today. She is definitely hiding, intentionally making everyone worry. Officer, don't be fooled by her. He had a pleased expression on his face. He showed a joyful expression on his face. Speak. Right. Today is April Fool's Day. She must be just playing with me. All I did was let her go out for a bit. I'll let her come back soon. If it really doesn't work, I'll just apologize to her. The police officer across the street still wants to persuade. Recently, there have been several cases of missing women in our city. This matter may not be so simple. As soon as Zio Chen heard this, his face immediately showed a look of anxiety. Teardrops fell like beans. Although he is still a child, he has already sensed that something is wrong. He said to the police with a crying tone, "Uncle Police. Today, Mom even answered Dad's call. Can you bring Mom back? Woo, woo, woo. I miss Mom." John tried hard to control his inner anxiety. Yeah, today Emily also answered my call, but she hung up without saying a word. But I believe Emily is definitely okay. The police finished listening. She had no choice but to hang up the phone. Little Chen wiped away her tears. She gently held onto John, whose face looked unwell. "Dad, I miss Mom. Can you bring Mom back? I promise I'll be good and listen." His expression softened a bit. "Little Chen, Mom will definitely come back. Wait a moment, Dad will call Mom. She will come back. You should go to bed obediently by yourself." "Okay." Little Chen awkwardly reached into her clothes and scratched. Then she touched her belly. In the end, I hesitated to speak. I silently walked into the bedroom. I hovered in the air. I looked at my son's dirty face. It seems that no one has taken care of him this month. He hasn't even bathed properly, without me as his nanny. The two of them have no one to cook for them. It's either takeout or just some junk food. John has never taken care of the child alone. Of course, he's been extremely busy. I saw him irritably hit the sofa with his fist. He finally called me for the second time. The phone rang in the empty living room. I watched him clear his throat for a moment. Then he showed a flattering smile. He looked like he wanted to apologize but hesitated. It made me feel a bit amused. If I'm not mistaken, this number probably won't connect again. Sure enough, a clear voice came from the phone. "Hello, the number you dialed is turned off." John frowned. He was clearly a bit unhappy. He suddenly thought of something, but he held it back. Then he called me for the third time, and the result was the same as before. It still didn't connect. He finally started to feel anxious. The police's words kept echoing in his mind. I watched as he anxiously sent me all his contact information, but I didn't receive any response. "Emily, what are you doing?" Throwing a tantrum should have its limits. I sat on the sofa next to him. I couldn't help but chuckle. I've been gone for several days now. How could I still have the energy to throw a fit? Sigh. If I could still throw a tantrum, the first thing I would do is divorce you. The heartless one. He looked up in confusion, staring out the window. I followed his gaze. His expression became somewhat complicated because it's the north. Even in March, it was still lightly snowing outside, falling gently, just like the day I was kicked out. John clearly didn't expect it to turn out this way. He was stunned for quite a while. He muttered to himself softly, "Where would Emily go? She only knows me here. Could she have gone to find her best friend?" He wore a happy expression on his face. He immediately stood up and prepared to walk out the door. I was also moved to action by him, but when we reached the door, he suddenly stopped, because my wool coat was hanging on the coat rack at the entrance. This designer coat is the only one John has given me over the years. I always put it on when I go out, but that time, everything happened so suddenly. I hadn't even had the chance to throw it on. All my documents were in the wallet behind the coat. He trembled as he searched. He discovered that the wallet contained all my documents and bank cards. Without these documents, I wouldn't be able to go to another city at all. Only then did John panic. "It's so cold outside, and I don't have any money. How would I survive these 30 days? I looked at him. His expression was somewhat complicated. I couldn't quite put into words how I felt inside. John still cares about me. It's just that I held him in such high regard, that I made him forget I'm just an ordinary person, a person who needs to be loved. I watched him tossing and turning until dawn. He calmly sent his son to school. I followed him driving aimlessly around the streets. Surrounded by upscale shops, he gripped the steering wheel. His expression was somewhat downcast. "Emily, where are you going?" John's dullness really surprised me. He actually thought I would normally go to these places. The police searched for 3 consecutive days. When they arrived at John's house, he had already gone to work as usual. He told the police they could look around freely. There were broken glass bottles all over the floor. The house was filled with an unpleasant smell. The police asked him several questions. He answered vaguely. No way. The police had no choice but to check the surveillance footage. The footage only showed him pushing me out the door. Protecting Lily, everyone's expression became complicated. A little female officer couldn't help but say, "That's too much. It's still snowing outside." He actually kicked his wife out for another person. If this continues, even if she isn't missing, she will freeze to death. He's living quite comfortably at home, relaxing with someone else. His wife has been missing for a month. He's not worried at all. This family really leaves people speechless. John's face was expressionless. He seems completely unconcerned about my safety. He even deliberately avoids talking about me. I watch him work late into the night every day, and as soon as he gets home, he goes straight to sleep. I once again feel that all my efforts over the years seem to have been in vain. I hope the police can find my body, under the bed in the bedroom. The police covered their noses and took a look around the house. They found nothing and just left. I sighed, thinking about when I would no longer have to follow this man. I really can't understand. How could I have liked him back then? Maybe it was love at first sight. The longer it goes on, my memories seem to be getting blurrier. Regarding the person who indirectly caused me to lose my loved ones, I have no feelings left at all. My only wish now is to see that criminal brought to justice. In the following days, John didn't take care of Zaya Achin. Zaya Achin had to manage on his own, cooking and doing laundry. He also had to take care of his dad when he came back. This child, who has always been spoiled, has also become more sensible since I left. He seems to understand a bit now. Every midnight, he would quietly approach John and cry secretly, whispering that he misses his mom. After crying for a while, he let out a hiccup, sniffled, and said, "Dad, it smells so bad in this room. How could this place not smell? The room is filled with garbage. The cockroaches are particularly large." I was watching. Suddenly, I froze. A cockroach crawled out from under the mattress. I couldn't help but laugh. Oh, how did I forget about myself? The heating has been on in the room. My corpse has been here for so long. It must have already started to rot. The smell must be terrible. John turned over. He didn't say a word. His eyes were tightly shut. He looked very calm. I knew he wasn't actually asleep, because his fingers were slightly trembling. From my observations over the past few days, I realized he wasn't completely indifferent. John just thought I was deliberately hiding. He just wanted to force me to show myself. I can probably guess his childish thoughts. Does he think that as long as Xiao Chen suffers more, I just can't help but come back on my own? Maybe my prayers really worked. Not long after, the police caught the murderer. Therefore, the police are closely monitoring around my house every night, day and night on guard. Finally, they caught the man who attempted to commit a crime again. Coincidentally, the person the murderer caught is just Lily. Lily came to find John several times. The result was targeted by the killer. After being knocked unconscious, I was locked in the basement. The police discovered dozens of female remains in the basement. The murderer was eventually captured by the police. The police dialed John's phone again. He answered quickly, with an expectation in the tone. "Is there news about Emily?" There was silence on the other end of the phone for a while, then said in a formal tone, "Please come to the police station to pick up Lily." John arrived at the police station, looking confused. Lily appeared anxious. Her clothes were tattered and dirty. It was clear she had suffered a lot. She rushed into his arms as soon as she saw him. I watched the couple tightly embracing each other. A surge of anger rose in my heart. I couldn't help but wonder why the murderer hadn't taken care of that annoying person. Why have I worked so hard for so long? Yet no one came to save me. Can the bad guys really live this long? John suddenly remembered the childhood friend he hadn't cared about for a long time. A wave of fear washed over him. He hurriedly held her in his arms. He, who had been expressionless these days, finally showed a hint of worry on his face. "Lily, are you okay? Are you hurt?" Lily trembled as she said, "That man said Emily was harmed by him. He also said he would come after me." "John, I'm so scared." John said dismissively, "Lily, you must have heard wrong. Emily will be back in a few days. The little police officer who came to my house last time had a complicated expression. She asked, "Are you a relative of Emily? The murderer has confessed to killing Emily." John's hand, which was gently stroking Lily's back, suddenly stopped. He looked at the speaker in surprise. A complex expression suddenly appeared on his face. It was as if he wanted to laugh but couldn't. He wanted to cry but couldn't either. He opened his mouth, but he couldn't say a word. That look was indeed somewhat unpleasant. I turned my face away, unable to accept it in my heart. No, this is impossible. How could Emily be dead? My son and I are still waiting for her to come home. Is she angry with me? Can I apologize to her? John suddenly pushed Lily away. He appeared very nervous, I swear. I'll never contact Lily again. Lily fell to the ground. She let out a scream. Her eyes were filled with tears. John, Emily is really gone. But he still acted as if he didn't hear. Bang. The sound of his body hitting the ground was particularly dull. I turned my head in surprise. John suddenly knelt down in the police hall. He pleaded, "I beg you, can you bring her back?" The young female officer stepped back in fright. She quickly regained her composure. She hurriedly stepped forward to help him up. I was startled as well. He is someone who cares a lot about his pride. Having lived for over 30 years, he has never been so humble, let alone kneeling down. But this time, he actually knelt down for me in front of so many people. I still don't know what he was really thinking. When I begged him to save me back then, it seemed like he couldn't wait for me to disappear. He hates me for being too rigid, doesn't understand humor, and blames me for hindering his kindness towards Kingmay. Why am I dead? Yet he behaves like this. Lily's eyes were red, crawled to John on her knees. "John, didn't you always hate Emily? You said she was nowhere near as good as me. She's not as pretty or as obedient as I am. She's dead. Then we can." John forcefully pushed the person away. He shouted, "Stop talking. Emily said we would grow old together. She wouldn't lie to me, even if she doesn't want me. There's also Zaya Achin." Everyone silently looked at him. His eyes were bloodshot. He looked extremely disheveled, as if he had become a different person. The proud attitude of not wanting to cooperate in finding people was gone. It was completely unnoticeable now. The captain of the criminal police team stepped out. He ended this chaos. He poured a cup of hot tea, handed it to John. "Speak slowly. The murderer has confessed to killing your wife." But John heard this. His eyes suddenly lit up. "But what? Is the murderer lying?" He continued to say, "Her body hasn't been found yet, so it's too early to draw conclusions now. Verify what? Emily is fine. She definitely won't be dead." The captain sighed gently. "The murderer said he just wants to talk to you about Emily. You see, I'm willing to go," he said firmly. In the interrogation room, the atmosphere was tense and serious. I followed John and finally met that devil again. I rushed up, roaring, wanting to take him down, but I couldn't touch him at all. The man was a scrap collector. He had a foul smell about him. His hair was greasy and messy, stuck tightly to his head. I saw someone opening the door. He raised his head. He saw John. A hint of interest appeared in his murky eyes. He stuck out his tongue and licked his darkened lips. Then he said, "Your wife smells really good. That's just too much." Upon hearing this, John immediately lost control of his emotions. His eyes turned red. He rushed forward angrily to hit someone, but he was promptly stopped by the police. He struggled and shouted, "Don't hold me back. I'm absolutely furious. What did he do to Emily?" The murderer let out a strange laugh. It was chilling. He continued, "Ha ha, she is really very calm. Completely different from other women. She is quiet and cautious. She didn't provoke me. I find her very interesting. So I gave her 2 chances to call for help." John sat on the ground in a daze. He recalled the phone call he received 2 weeks ago. His face suddenly turned pale. The murderer said smugly, "I made her call for help from the most important person. She immediately chose to call you. She even forgot to call the police. But how could I give her the chance to call the police? You won't believe it. The person she cared about the most actually told her to die. Ha ha ha," he said with a dazed look in his eyes. The unsettling hope in those eyes finally disappeared. "It's so beautiful." John's neck and forehead were bulging with veins. He shouted in despair, "This is too much. This is too much. You called me an animal. Then what are you? You personally destroyed her only chance to escape unharmed." John's eyes were filled with pain. His fingers gripped the table tightly. His nails were bleeding. The embarrassing memories that I had finally managed to forget flooded back to me. I desperately slammed against the wall. But the pain still closely followed me. That's right. John's death is closely related to mine. The murderer looked at the man's pained expression and smiled. He opened his mouth, revealing a set of yellow teeth. It made me feel a wave of nausea. That cold night, this man was the only warmth by my side. For the sake of survival, I chose to obey. The killer cleared his throat and continued. She looks a lot like the first cat I killed, especially obedient. So I gave her a second chance. The police's expressions suddenly turned grim. They obviously knew what had happened long ago. You want to guess what it is? The room fell silent. Only John's increasingly excited breathing could be heard. "Ha, you still don't know, do you? She is in your house. She accompanies you to sleep every night." John recalled the new mattress that had been delivered, and that lingering, unpleasant smell. Her complexion was pale to the point of being almost transparent. You put Emily under our bed." He could no longer hold on. Everything went dark. He fainted. But in the interrogation room, the voice of the murderer still echoed. "I just felt so sorry for her. She has passed away, and I have to listen to you playing games with that person. It's really ridiculous." At this moment, I suddenly felt much lighter. I could actually move freely. I didn't look at John on the ground. I flew straight back to the villa. John rushed to the bedside. He forcefully tore open the mattress, revealing my already deformed corpse. Little Chen had a vacant look in his eyes. He weakly sat by the bed in the broken spot. Obviously, they have already guessed it. I watched the police carefully carry out my severely deformed body. It was covered in maggots and cockroaches. To better fit me to the bed, the murderer shattered all the bones in my body. Little Chen sat by the bed with a pale face. He wouldn't leave no matter what. He cried and repeatedly said, "This is not my mom. My mom is very beautiful. How could it turn out like this?" The police didn't know how to comfort him for a moment. I looked at this son I had cared for over the years. He sighed. "This child may always have psychological trauma in the future, but what does that have to do with me?" At that moment, my son suddenly looked over at me. He happily shouted, "Mom." I gently moved my body. Unexpectedly, my son also turned his head to look at me. He called out, "Mom, don't go from now on. Xiao Chen will definitely behave. Is that okay?" I'm feeling complicated, confirming that he can really see me. I watched the police below anxiously checking on his son's condition. I shook my head helplessly. I have regained my memories. The people who hurt me have received their due punishment. As for that father and son, although they didn't lay hands directly, they indirectly caused my misfortune. They will spend their lives in pain, but none of this concerns me anymore. It's time for me to leave. I heard my son crying sadly behind me. "Mom." I recalled that morning. My son took a step back. I also stepped back in the end. I glanced at John. He looked like he had lost control of his emotions. He kept repeating my name. Teardrops flowed from the corners of his eyes. "Emily, it was my fault. I never intended for you to die. I just wanted you to change in this way. Why can't you take a step back?" It seems he still has feelings for me. It's just that he's too arrogant. He feels that our love has slowly turned into familial affection. No matter how much you hurt me, I will never leave. I have always remained the same, but the man who walked with me for over 20 years has changed. He says I don't know how to dress up, like a worn-out woman. He has clearly aged too. Why have I never looked down on him? He says I am unattractive in bed. He's been tired of it for a long time, but that doesn't justify his crossing the line with Lily. So why have I never criticized him for not being lasting enough? He says I always control him, not letting him stay up late, not letting him smoke or drink, and not letting him eat spicy hot pot. But he has high blood pressure. He should have given up these bad habits from the start. He even said I'm not as good as Lily. I won't comment on that statement, because everyone is unique. There's no need to compare. He's not some big shot. If he truly likes Lily, he should just divorce me directly, instead of using her to provoke me. There are many ways to make me change. Why choose this one? It's even simpler with my son. Just give him the fried chicken and skewers he likes, and buy him a game console. Compared to my constant nagging, Lily is obviously more popular. After all these years, I have done my best. I have given everything. In the end, even my son doesn't support me. My death, they must be responsible. They let Lily have the opportunity to act recklessly. I will never forgive them. John went crazy under excessive stimulation. He went mad on the spot. My son was taken away by the welfare home. He was crying and calling for his mom, but that no longer concerns me. I feel my body getting lighter and lighter. I am flying towards the sky of freedom that belongs to me.